Hey, Steph, thank you for coming on the Fox Den. Welcome.
Thank you. And you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I wanted to talk with you because you are a prolific Twitter uh, personality who enjoys discussing mental health and um, it's metaphysics, spirituality.
Yeah, yeah, the healing journey, everything that goes with it, because I haven't been able to use just one tool. So, I mean, like, I'm into astrology, I'm into psychology, I'm into like everything. People's like
Yes.
childhood stories, basically. I'm like very deep with it, I guess you'd say.
Yes. What inspired you toward this path? Did you have any sort of experiences or
Oh
ideas?
man. Okay, so the first experience, which was a huge experience, I've talked about it before, so I should definitely use this time to talk about it now. But in 2012, I was in a car accident and I got blown out of it, and the Jeep landed on me. And I woke up in the hospital, and my leg was amputated. And it was, yeah, right? Like, it is a crazy thing to happen. Like, you don't hear that every day. And
No.
so, perspective wise, okay, I just turned 22 the month before. I went from being like a very carefree, like partying college student to like just waking up in the hospital, and it was just like, what? Like, if that doesn't change your perspective, I don't know what what else could have happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, that woke me up. Like, after that, I actually had like post-traumatic growth, which that's something that like people do need to know about, because I mean, it's like people that have, it was a near-death experience, and like I've been feeling like I do need to do more research on that and people that have had near-death experiences, because I mean, mine was so revolutionary. So it was just like I mean, I literally became, I was just, would say, very lost, and I feel like that's why I empathize with so many people. And so yeah, like that was the first thing that was just like, wow. I mean, you're in hospitals, you're like in a hospital with pretty much like old people about to die, like, like it was just a crazy perspective. And it was just like, wow, I really need to just start examining what life is about now. Like, I'm shook.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, so you went from being very kind of just the normal experience of a 22-year-old to having this massively paradigm shifting brush with death itself.
Yeah, totally, totally. Because the only thing I even remember about that night is that like I got my ass kicked. Like, I don't remember the accident, but I do know the feeling of getting beat up by life is how it felt. Like, honestly, like that is literally all I remember. And then just like tasting dirt, and that was it. I couldn't even get myself up. And that's the thing too. People that have had accidents like mine, so like I've watched like Teal Swan, and I've heard her talk about like she has a lot of friends that are paraplegic, and it's such like they were in an accident, and like they were the people that like they did not ask for help in life, and then ultimately life put them in a direction where it was like, you have to, like sometimes I do have to ask for help, like sometimes I
Yeah.
do, and I'm like a very like I hate that. And of course it would be somebody like me who I hate asking for help more than anything in the world.
Wow. Yeah. And so, how did that change, or how did that aversion to asking for help, did that play into your recovery and growth?
I mean, so I definitely feel in the beginning it was like, honestly though, I was such a like, I still am like, I don't need your help. I mean, I only need help with
Sure.
like if I'm moving or something, like, come on, help me out, like help me with some heavy lifting. But honestly, like I had to ask for help on somewhat of things. I mean, I was literally like even just needing help with like take me to the doctor and take me to a surgery and take me to get my leg made, and you know what I mean. It's just like I had to be taken care of. I had to quit my job. It's weird because one of the first things I said after my accident was, oh my god, I was supposed to be at work today, do they like, is everything okay? And my mom was just so shocked that it was just like, oh my god, like this is a really big deal. Of course, like your restaurant job, like understands but it's true. It's such a weird, I mean, so I still am a person that I don't want help, but I want to help. But ultimately life has put me in situations where it's like, I do need help sometimes. It's just like.
Sure. So you still have a high, well, it's about interdependence, right? So you have a high drive for independence, don't like being dependent. Kind of in the middle, though, is interdependence, where we realize sometimes we need help, but overall, we're not overly dependent. We still retain that desire to do things.
Mm-hmm. And you've just struck something in me, in the sense where I'm thinking only based on this story and asking for help, because I think about it, and honestly I succeeded and didn't go to physical therapy. I taught myself to walk with a cane and all this stuff. But now that I have a child, this is where I have to be vulnerable and be like, hey, even right now, I had to tell my sister, giving this talk with you, or having this was a big deal, and this feels like something big and important, and she's inside getting my son to sleep. That for me is more vulnerable than asking anybody to carry. So you know what I mean, for me as
yes,
because I was actually trying to put him down for a nap myself, and then I was trying to do it all,
and that can be overwhelming.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Totally.
So oh my gosh,
you found my spot.
Yeah, well, it happens sometimes. Something that I really enjoyed that you recently posted was about embracing all emotions, and that is just so clinically relevant. The biggest thing that you can, for the audience out there, that you can notice about someone who's really experienced, either from their own lived journey or clinically or both, is how much they encourage people to embrace negative emotions and not just positive. Because you get people who talk about the law of attraction, which in and of itself is great, but when you don't acknowledge that sometimes we're going to feel negative things, and when it's all about la la la, just think positive, there's a real there's a damage to that, right? It's like it's the more secular or new age rather than Christian version of faith healing, and whatever happens to you, it's your fault. So I love that you really tell your followers to embrace all emotions and not just the positive ones.
Totally.
Shame is such a horrible experience. If you want to I want to open the floor. If you want to talk about your experiences, what you've noticed about culture and shame. It's a huge conversation.
I mean, the whole time you were saying that, the only thing I'm thinking in my head is shame.
Yeah.
Shame, truly, because it's there's nothing unnatural about anger or pain or frustration or even jealousy or resentment. It's all normal. And I'm a domestic violence advocate. And so I've been trauma trained, trauma informed. And knowing about this has really made me realize we're just kind of shaming each other. You know, we're just we're all judging each other, and we're doing what I do as far as nobody wants to talk about domestic violence, and nobody wants to talk about that it affects it does not discriminate. It's in all over the world. Every culture has domestic violence. Every class, poor and rich, it doesn't discriminate. It's the same as mental illness, and all of this stuff needs to be. I mean, how shitty do I feel about myself when I'm looking at Instagram, and all I see is just the beautiful moments of your motherhood, and say I've not had maybe a peachy journey. This is what I'm seeing with women in general. There's so much shame within, look at being raised, I guess you would say. It's all been inherited, I would say. So it's we can't escape it. It all starts ultimately at home. And that's why, to me, domestic violence is my passion, and just what I'm figuring out. I'm in the beginning of my journey, so it's I don't feel I have a set, but it's I know where it starts. So I feel my mission is to help people not have shame about processing that your parents were humans doing the best they could with what they were taught, And then we're doing the same. I'm just trying to do better than I was taught. And I'm trying to also bring up everybody that's with me still. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
And
do.
not judge my parents for, you know, where they were spiritually or emotionally or mental health wise, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that ability to recognize that some parents are just not equipped or are making mistakes due to their own flaws in their journey, gaps in things that they didn't learn, right? It's very liberating because it takes away the personal element and turns it
Oh
into,
my God, yes.
yes, love that. And I think it's important because even though it's not our fault what happened to us, sadly, we're responsible for the growth. We're responsible for how we respond, even when it was completely the other person's fault. So I know with DV, people are given horrible wounds, sometimes physical, always emotional, that then they have to heal, right? And it's not fair. But if the other option, though, is for it to turn pathological and become a personality disorder or a
exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm sure you've come up against the idea that, well, why should I have to grow? It was someone else that did this to me. And it's tough. It's tough when people aren't ready to hear positive messages.
Totally. And I have a total perspective on that. It's like, you need to, what people who are with that defense that are like, it wasn't my fault. It's not your fault.
Of course not.
You did not deserve that. Like, you go in there and you go and you feel that wound, and you, as an adult, you comfort that child. Like, you have to reparent yourself. Like, it's like that pain is totally valid. So of course, no, it wasn't your fault. But like, nobody can control you. Even if your parent had the best intention and wanted to fix you, they couldn't. Even if they came later in your life and were like, you know, I'm so sorry about what I did and blah, blah, blah. Say they had their, and the person is, you know, it could help greatly. Or, you know, that person could still feel severe pain, already been on the path of leaving their soul. Because to me, the personality disorders, that's abandonment of the soul. You know, like,
wow. Okay, that's deep. Talk about that.
Right, because it's like, I go deep with, as far as like, because it's just like, I don't know. You see how I'm just like, I throw it all in there together. It's like, yes, a personality disorder is you abandoned your inner child, your true self. You left your true self behind, and you just kept a personality disorder is a coping mechanism.
Yes.
It is a coping mechanism for abuse, for pain, adversity, whatever. Like, it is a coping mechanism. It is a avoidance of reality. It's a delusion. You think you're controlling this whole persona, the face. I mean, that's really what a personality disorder is. It's a face they think they've made, you know.
Yes.
They don't know the real self. They left the real self back at like 7. So also the emotional maturity is of a 7-year-old.
Yes, absolutely. So you hit on something there, because it is a delusion. And borderline personality disorder, for example, you have the almost psychotic fear of abandonment that can be seen everywhere, and then the person obviously brings it to pass by driving someone away, right? And continue to replicate that. And in narcissism, there's that delusion of grandeur, the grandiosity of self. It's delusional. So
the entitlement.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think we have an epidemic of fragile narcissism now, where people have been taught that they don't make mistakes from an early age. And so then you get, when people do make mistakes and someone calls them on it, they've never encountered it. It's like a complete thorough wounding, like a traumatic wound, because the self is so lacking in resilience. I don't know if you've seen that in your journey.
You know what that is? That's causing, they don't want it's a reality collapse. It's a reality collapse happening. You know, somebody's threatening this illusion they've made up that they say is true.
Right.
And that's why, if you want to be in a relationship with somebody with a personality disorder, I mean, ultimately, I don't know if you have, I've never found any research of a narcissist healing. I've actually coming back, they may learn as far as like my research, but like, basically, if you want to be in a relationship with them, you just have to be very aware that like the more out of touch they are with themselves, if you think they're going to be in touch with you, you know what I mean? And this is for people that are just in pain because they want to help somebody. That's the only reason I say that, is because I know that there are people in pain in these relationships, and it's just, maybe they can be cured. I hope them all healing. I do. But I'm going to be real on the flip side and let somebody know you're dealing with a person who's detached from their soul.
Yeah, there's no uncertain terms, is it? That's pretty blunt. I like it.
I know I'm pretty intense like that though. Like I am. It's just,
well, being direct is a real strength. People sometimes have to hear it straight out. So there is research, and I'll find it and attach it potentially like a link.
I'd love to see, because I mean,
about a narcissist learning empathy and how they can. So they're not. So for listeners out there, they're not psychopaths. Now it works like this: all psychopaths are narcissistic, but not all narcissistic people are psychopaths. So usually with narcissism, you can imagine it like there's a thorn in the person where it's preventing them from healing. Something is keeping them hyper focused on themselves, and it's usually the complete denial of flaws, because flaws are just unimaginable. They mean that you're completely broken. And so you can't embrace the self as a realistic construct. It's got to be grandiose, because that's the only thing that's acceptable, right? So usually if someone can get past that, and that person can realize, wait a minute, it's okay to be human, it's okay to be broken, blah, 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 then they can feel empathy for others, and all of that ego energy isn't spent propping up that self. But it's like with narcissists, something is keeping the ego energy of the self on the internal perspective, on oneself, so much that there's nothing left for others. And so when you free that up and you act the person, but I mean, they have to be willing to do that, right? The biggest impediment to personality disorders is that the person doesn't think it's a disorder, because it's part of their personality. Exactly.
That's the hard thing about it. It's not them complaining. It's usually like a loved one complaining.
Yep. Yeah. And then you get people. Yeah. It's fascinating who comes to therapy, because it's usually the person who takes ownership, and is
the non-disordered one.
Oh, absolutely. And then what sucks is it's like, well, how do I fix myself, or how do I learn something in here to fix my partner?
Right.
Hate to break it to you. That's not an easy answer.
Right.
Because it's like you said, you have to be aware of what the other person's willing to change, and what their own heart or soul, or whatever you want to say, the state of that.
Yeah, and it's really just a matter of being in touch with themselves and the reality of the pain they feel.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. So talk a little bit about what got you into about the DV advocate work, because that's absolutely fascinating. How long have you been doing that? Is there certification in it? Because we could talk about trauma-informed stuff for a while.
Yeah. So I got into this in March. I'm a volunteer right now.
Nice.
I am a direct volunteer, which means I had to get the training, which that is just like, it goes over everything. Basically, also where I live, there is a sex trafficking problem as well. And it honestly is like, which it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's where you live. It's wherever. That's one of the things of like, we have to stop having closed eyes. And I guess like for me, doing this training, they've really showed how pretty much violence, the sex work, pretty much all of our problems start from domestic violence. Like there's like this triangle chart, and it's like literally domestic violence, and then there's the power and control wheel. And so so we're living in a time where, I mean, there really kind of is like a narcissist and empath war, in the sense of people, how to be successful in this kind of like in the mainstream, like corporate world, like would be to be on the more, because empathy and narcissism, they're on the same spectrum. You know what I mean? So it's like, to be successful, like we've been in a world where like we've just been totally shut off from like tuning into the other person. It's all been about like profit. And I mean, even in this training, we went over like the ads and the media they do of women and how women are depicted in ads, as far as like, you only show the ass, and you only, in all these ways that we don't really think about how like we're objectifying ourselves. And so of course it's easier to hurt something or hurt someone when you don't actually like see it as a person. Like, that's just kind of like a cultural thing like we've been doing. I mean, I feel like that's like, I don't like to point things out because I don't want to seem judgmental, in the sense that everyone has their own journey, and whatever's important to you in this life, like mine doesn't happen to be like, I guess, being like super powerful and having like a lot of like, I'm here for more like connection, I guess you'd say. Like, I want to like really get on the same level as people. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, it's so DV and trauma in general, we know from the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Scale.
Oh God, yes. Yeah.
Really does give a prognosis for future functioning, with the caveat that if you receive therapy, if you address those negative symptoms and experiences, right, then your prognosis is great. There's that post-traumatic growth. But
right. And then there's the whole like resilience thing, where some people are, we shouldn't shame people on being, I'm a very resilient person. I know that. Like, I can go through shit and I will
bounce back.
Some people can't, like, but that shouldn't be judged. Like, just, you know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't be, that's the thing about being trauma informed, is that we need to quit comparing trauma. Like, when people see me and think, oh my God, like, that's so crazy. It's like, no, like, you're totally discrediting your own experience. Like, this was an experience for me. We are way too much. And that's even, I feel in our society, that's like the competition thing. You know what I mean? Like, either you had it worse or I had it worse, but we're still comparing.
That is so common now. Yes, right. Comparing wounds, telling war stories, whatever little colloquialism you want to use. It's pretty damaging. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed with trauma is if this person, even if they at a young age had anyone in their corner who was a great model for good, healthy relationships or bonding, it makes people so much more resilient. If they had anybody who was there for them. So. I mean, it's so fascinating to look into post-traumatic growth, and there's more research coming out about it, and that's always helpful. But.
Yeah, that's why I feel like I should definitely say something about that, because like people need to hear that there's like, if there's post-traumatic stress, like what would be the opposite? You know what I mean? Like, since everything's a spectrum anyways, like. So.
Absolutely. And I try to have people focus on the fact that whatever is present in your mind is going to be where your attention goes and where your effort goes, right? So when people think about trauma, right, first you have to validate something happened. Yes, absolutely. But then after that, it's time to think about healing, because if you think about not being traumatized, your brain doesn't really hear the not. It's just,
God, no. Yeah.
Right. And so people, in my practice, when we're doing EMDR, which is an awesome trauma-informed therapy, they want to say that the positive thought is, I'm not in danger, or I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm like, okay, so phrase that positively. What does that look like? Like I can be safe. How much better is that to think about? I think in our culture now, things are defined so much by not.
Right.
And people don't realize that what you think about, even if you're qualifying it, is where your brain's going to go.
Right. And that totally, like, I feel like you just put a piece of puzzle in my brain together, in the sense of like, saying you should not is shaming something. So really the root of everything, I've been just getting this message from so many different, like, where I'm just like, honestly, shame's our problem. Shame.
Yes.
Because I know that the narcissist and the borderline and the, you know, who, I don't know, I'm just going to say those because I studied those, that they have a lot of shame. You know what I mean? It's the shame of, that's hurting us, like all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Shame tends to be like the power core of any kind of pathology. So that is a great point. Oh my gosh. It keeps things hidden and stagnant.
Yeah. It's also like a liar almost. It's like just like sabotage, like for your life. Like if you want to sabotage yourself, like you should definitely have shame then.
Oh my gosh.
I don't recommend it for anybody.
No, of course not. I mean, and when you look at, so in compromise too, when you have a couple or anybody like that you're trying to talk things through with, it's best to say, well, here's what you can do. Here's all the different compromises I'm willing to make, rather than I'm not willing to do this. I'm amazed at how many people I see on Twitter or anywhere really, or the Reddit sort of, there's different subreddits and people will turn them into videos like r/relationship issues and whatever. It's like you see people with these screenshots of letters that their significant others written like, you're not to do this, and it's extremely controlling.
Oh, and another thing, because my brother is 18 and he just had his first breakup, so I just got to witness like kind of the root of like when those like dysfunctional toxic patterns set, and like she would be like, oh no, like I wouldn't let him do that, and I'm just like, oh my god, like letting someone do something, like it's just like, I mean, especially me as like, I'm like way older than my brother, just like, I mean, it was good that it ended because it was like a giant red flag. Giant.
Yeah, whenever you hear those kind of terms, it would be the natural question is, if you're not going to let someone do something, okay, then what is the punishment? Are you going to threaten to break up? Are you going to?
The person is property at that point.
Exactly.
The person is property at that point. I mean, that's why my Twitter, the tweet that I'll probably have posted forever pinned is that true love is not being bound, it's freedom. Something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. It's wanting the best for that person and to be a source of empowerment rather than a source of restriction.
If you are free with somebody, like that would be like your energies are dancing. Like you should absolutely want to be free with somebody and not want to be telling them not to do things. I mean, that's just like, eek. I picture people like in this, how my brain, I'm like getting tangled up in these cords and they're holding them both themselves back. It's like, oh my goodness, you guys are putting both of you in cages. Like,
yeah, it's absolutely traumatizing. And something that we're discovering in culture now, I think, is that you can give either party too much power in a two-person relationship where someone can be very controlling, either through outright controlling and saying this is how it's going to be, or through saying, well, due to my own past, you can't do this. And then had other...
Oh, totally. Just the gaslighting and manipulating to just...
A victimhood form of covert power and an oppressor form of overt power. It really...
I know. It's pretty crazy to look at how it's just like, wow, like it's literally the same tactic, power and control, but they do it in their different flavors.
It's cloaked in a more acceptable flavor in
right, and plus it makes you feel bad for this person. So it's just like you're pulling on my heartstrings. So I mean, I'm human, it's like the ultimate, like, and that's what my brother was dealing with, because she had problems at home and we were trying to help her, but then it's like, oh no. I mean, it was just oh no for me, because I was like really hopeful that I could help her and help guide her, but then we caught her being too abusive. Like it's just like no. It's like, so it's like I wanted to help her, like redirect her to herself, but at the same time I can't, like, you can't change anybody. And so it's like really like it's making our space toxic, like eek, like that's kind of like the time I feel we're entering, where we're just kind of gonna have to be more like not feed into the toxic energy. Like how else are people gonna get better if we're always just...
No, you're 100% right.
Losing ourselves for them. You know what I mean? It's like we're making things messier by trying to save people.
Yes.
And that's healthy boundaries.
It is. You can empower someone to receive help, but you can't make them receive it, though. You can't make it. It's that the redneck colloquialism of you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I mean, that holds true for so much, because the change the desire has to come from within, or it won't be sustained. Yeah.
Totally.
So talk about what got you into creating jewelry, because I know that's what a lot of people from Twitter are going to know you for.
I know. So I started making jewelry in 2013, and I was literally just at that point, because that was after my accident, and that was when I was getting a bit more personal with myself and actually kind of like accepting like I had feelings. And actually I think that's when I got super into astrology. And so I mean, astrology was my for sure gateway drug into crystals.
Okay.
Because then I like found my whole birth chart, and I realized I have an Aries moon, and that's why I'm such a like independent, fiery Cancer. Like it was just I understood so many different layers of myself at that point that it was just like, so my jewelry came in with that. Like I just started making it for me, because I was like the type I got like accidentally witchy. Like I never tried to like, do you know what I mean? Like I literally just like was like by myself at home, just like, okay, well I need to make this because like I'm working really hard trying to like get my bachelor's degree anyways. Like, so this stone is for like helping you on exams, like, and then I'd be like wearing them, and then people at school would be like, yo, what is that? And like that is literally how it happened. So it's like, this is my second business. My first one I started in college, and then I had my son in 2016 December, and I just stepped away from that because it was just like new motherhood. And then when he was like probably, I don't know, not even a year old, it was just like clear I needed still my own outlet. That was another part of learning, just that I had to have keep my own passions going. So then I started Cosmic Feels, and so I started Steph Feels, like my Twitter, literally because honestly to just like kind of like find a voice, but that kind of took off. But it completely just like went into Cosmic Feels. So it's like true, it's cool because like now actually like I feel like people like they know me and they actually want to get jewelry from me because they know that like I am like, I pretty much am like eat, sleep, and drink, like healing all day. Like I go have moments like crying, like for a moment, processing something, going back to parenting. I have moments like just like, okay, like let's sit here, like I said, like I literally have to ask for help sometimes. Like I literally have to be like, go on a walk with grandma, you know what I mean? And like mommy have just like a sit down moment with myself. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just, I know that's like I feel I'm all over the place.
That's okay.
That's my Gemini energy. But yeah, so it's like honestly my jewelry is just like a part of my life now. Like it's like even today I wore this like blue aquamarine pendant for this throat chakra because it's like soothing, calming, like ocean. Smooth like the ocean.
Voice.
Yeah, exactly. Like
that's great. So. What got you into astrology first?
Ooh, that is like, so when I figured out my birth chart, I'm actually a Scorpio rising. And so then I was like, I can figure out everybody.
Yeah, Scorpio rising.
Well, just in the sense of like, I was always, well, I'm just a total water baby in the sense of like, I'm a Cancer, Scorpio rising. Like, I'm definitely into like, just like, figure out people's energies and like the fact that I can like have a name for it. And like now at this point it's just like nobody, I don't talk to anybody and not mention it. It was impossible that I couldn't mention astrology in this interview because like I talk about it like even naturally to like my mom, and she's like, why is this way? And I'm like, because he's got a Virgo moon. And she's just like, whatever.
Like, so she doesn't, is that some credulity there? She's very skeptical of it.
No, she knows.
Like, whatever.
She well, because she wants a different answer. She wants to hear like something more fun. I don't know, just like not so simple. Like when she's like, why is it this way? And I'm just like, it's simple. Like sometimes people don't want to hear that it's simple. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh, do I? In this field. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor parental attachment, and you've got to reparent yourself. No, can't I take a pill?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I know. And that's like, I mean, that reminds me of like my mom, and that is probably like kind of an era thing of just like when pharmaceuticals came out and we thought for a time period that pills could fix everything, and then we realized we started more way other problems in the sense of just like addiction and whatnot, and kind of just escapism. And you know, you'd have to feel what you want to heal. I mean, that's just like, and if you're on something, I do think there's like purpose for every single thing, absolutely, but it's just in the sense of like there can't be one pill that makes it go away forever.
No, pills can be great in helping you to regulate your emotions and hormones.
Exactly.
But what you do with that and the growth you make, it's like jump starting a car, but you still got to drive the car
it's
to
like getting you clear-headed and ready for the race. It's like it gives you the tools to, you know, like you said, regulate. Like I love that, because honestly, we're living in a world where you're just kind of watching people like not being able to regulate them. You know what I mean? It's like it's becoming more common than not, in a sense. Like, and I think it's that like sensitivity, narcissism. What were you talking about? That fragile.
Oh, fragile narcissism. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Well, here's the deal with it. I mean, there's an epidemic of fragile narcissism because I think you can look at the progression of culture and the errors, whatever error one generation of parents made is the exact opposite error that the next will make. And so you get the baby boomer parents who didn't know how to show emotion and squelched it. And then you get the response in Gen X parents of, okay, over emotional, everything you do is perfect. And there's a difference between shame and accountability, or shame and realistic boundary, right? Because if you don't have a boundary, you don't know where you start and end.
Exactly.
And so if children are taught that they can make no mistakes and everything is perfect, if they ever run across any kind of limitations or find that they've made a mistake, it doesn't compute. They're not ready. They don't understand that, and it becomes massive depressive affect and almost a destruction of the self because it's so fragile.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about with fragile narcissism. Is it's a selfishness that's sad in a way.
Yeah.
I'm everything, and so if I ever have a limit, then there is nothing, and I don't know.
Right. Well, because I mean, with anything of like personality disorders, like black or white, you know, they can't.
Absolutely.
It can't be like, you know, a little bit good and a little bit bad and a little bit whatever, you know, because we're so much more complex than even just a duality, you know, like there's a lot to us.
Absolutely. And you get into the either you're for someone or against them. You either are everything to me or you're nothing and terrible.
Oh, yeah.
That's the borderline personality disorder splitting that is so common. Wow. Yeah. What is something you think everybody should know about crystals or about gems, if you can even boil it down like that?
Okay. So I got asked this once before, and I'm so glad I did, because it prepared me for this question. Because he asked, the question was, do crystals work? And so I was like, yeah, people need to understand that like we are super powerful. We as a collective have already, like, the power of crystals, like we've already done it. We've already given it. This has been since the beginning of time. Like jade is like one of the oldest crystals, like turquoise, like these have all been used for like protection and guidance and for guardian angel spirit type deals to, you know what I mean? Like just like some sort of guidance and protection has been attached to these things. Like if you are a person that is just truly willing to just like, because I know there's skeptical people that like would say crystals don't work, but if you're just truly willing to like kind of just be like light with your energy and like just like say it does and like play with it, it's like it's life changing. You like brainwash yourself to tap into the power. The power's there. We've already done that. Like for centuries and centuries. Like we have already given, so it's the same as money having power. You know what I mean? It's just like certain things have power. Why do people give people jewelry? Jewelry, this is a symbolic, this is, you know, this is art. Like this is, and when you're buying from handmade and stuff too, like, yes, this is what people should know about crystals. That if you get them, you can tap into the power that literally all of us have put into it. And our ancestors. It's
fascinating. Oh man. Do you have any, so I like to ask this question of guests. If you could meet 3 people alive or dead, who would you meet? It's just, they have to have been real people.
Okay. Yeah. So I would definitely want to meet Kanye West.
Yee!
I love him. I have like had Kanye West music like get me through. Well, him being in a car accident anyways, and like it was pretty crazy. Him to sing about a broken jaw and like me, I don't know. He's hit a spot, and yes, Kanye. The second person is gonna be Frida Kahlo.
Ooh. Okay. Great.
So yeah, so her, I mean, I honestly feel like I'm like a more bubbly her, but I honestly feel I'm kind of like very much the same as her, is like kind of just like dark, deep in it, deep in the feels. She's a Cancer, and she's just like, she's an artist. And I mean, she had a prosthetic leg too, and she actually designed her own one. I mean, I just feel on a soul level, me and Frida would like, we'd be sisters. We'd kick it. Yeah. And then the third person, oh my gosh, that's the hard part. The third person I would want to meet, I don't know. I would want to meet my favorite YouTuber, Dolo, because like he's just really cool, and I would love to like hang out with him.
Dolo?
Yeah, Dolo. So shout out to him, because it's like, honestly, because I'm just thinking to myself, like I talk to people about like, oh, when are we all gonna like get together, like these people that are on a spiritual journey with me. And so like for that, I kind of more see that as like we've actually talked about like creating retreats or something. So I say Dolo, but I'm really in my head thinking like that big giant connection.
Yes, I see that.
So he's an astrologer and just like metaphysics, like super deep into just like, in my opinion, the meaning of
yeah.
I have so much love for him, so it's like definitely good. He's really helped me on my growth, so it's like why not pick him as my person? You know what I mean? Because it's like he's super cool.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, good picks. It's always fascinating who people decide who they would like to meet. You know, who
I know, I never thought about it, but I knew off the top of my head, like Kanye and Frida just popped in my head because I'm like have a strong connection to them. But other than that, I don't really think about it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Wow, what are some therapeutic modalities that you really believe in that help with shame or horoscope stuff? Or I want to lean into what your expertise is here with that, because it's such a relevant topic.
Right. Okay. So for starters with astrology, if someone were to know their birth chart, they would actually realize like, okay, I've got all these different planets. Like where was the solar system when I was born? Like the solar system, you know, so it's like you're a snapshot of the energy of that day. And so people could understand that, okay, your sun, that's your ego. That's how you see things, what you're consciously aware of. Your moon, though, your moon is something really important people should know, because that's your emotional self. So the moon changes every like 2.5 days. So so for me, I have a moon in Aries. That makes me, I could be quite explosive. And so for me, if I was just like, I'm a Cancer and I'm supposed to be this way, and like I didn't know, you know what I mean? It's like once I found out I was a moon in Aries, a lot made sense. Like I was like, that's why like I'm more of like a hothead and just can like heat up, but then I cool down really quick. Or, you know, that's why I take really personally and am extremely reactive. It takes the freaking shame out of it because it's a freaking birth chart placement. You know what I mean? Like I am a piece of the universe playing out the energy of that day is how I see it. So it's like, for me, that takes shame out when it's like I can see myself as like a complex human with all these planets made, like my sun and my moon, they square each other. So they, that's a learning opportunity. Or what is that? That's a square. They don't like each other. That's not that they don't like each other. They don't like really get each other. So it's like my Cancer sun is like, I want to take care of you. I want to fix you. I want to be motherly towards you. And my moon in Aries is like, I want freedom. Like you cannot hold me back. I do not want your help. Like
nurturing versus wandering in a way.
No, versus like a free warrior type.
Ooh, okay.
Right, yeah. So it's like for me, but it makes sense why I am resilient when I have been through emotional trauma. It makes sense that I was in a bad accident, and then my moon in Aries was like, like I'm not being taken out this way. And my Scorpio rising, which the Scorpio like literally goes through the what is it called? The transformation. Everybody says that, like the rise of the phoenix, like how they have to burn from the ashes. That's Scorpio energy. So it's like transformation is like a part of my personality. So it's like when I've like, so for me, if somebody learned their birth chart and they had like some sort of placement and it would all just make sense, and then they could not feel bad about being that way, right? Like, I mean,
wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? Because it's, in my opinion, just another tool. Like, it's just one more tool.
Just another lens through which to view.
And I've also heard of True Brilliance. True Brilliance is an amazing teacher as well of astrology. I want to meet her too. Can I meet 4 people? Just kidding.
Yeah.
She's awesome. But what was I saying with that even now? Oh my gosh, how did I lose that?
Shame, emotional self stuff, how to healing through recognizing that the chart is what it does for you.
Right. And I think I was going to say she had said something, but people should check her out anyways, as far as like astrology information. And maybe that plan will come back to me because I feel like I just got too excited. That was my Aries moon, honestly. That was my Aries moon having an ADD moment. But oh yes, True Brilliance actually had talked about that there is something called, I don't remember the name, but it has psychology and astrology and Greek mythology wrapped up in it.
Okay.
A type of study. I know. I'm like, that sounds like something I need to, but
it really does. I know parapsychology is kind of like that, but that's not, I mean, that the metaphysics stuff.
Right.
So I'll have to look into what True Brilliance actually posted and get because
I know. Yeah. I knew I'd get back to that point because I knew it was a good big point. Yeah.
Yeah. Something I like also talking about big points that you posted was that sit with your void until it's no longer a void. I mean, that's some active mindfulness toward whatever is bothering us or whatever lacks that we have, whatever gaps. Talk to me about what inspired that tweet.
Absolutely. So for me, I call them like original wounds because it's like I'm trying to get to the very first time I felt that. That was something actually in therapy, like I kind of tried to get to, and I've gotten to that with some of my stuff. But I have something, which I want to use astrology to actually understand it, but I have something where I almost exclude myself and will feel very alone. And I know that that's a void because when I'm being like my higher self or whatever you want to say, I feel completely connected to everybody, and I know I'm not alone, and I know I'm not an outsider, and I know I'm loved. You know what I mean? So it's like I have this wound that's like and I actually had talked to my friend about it that night when I felt it, and I was like, I kind of feel like I'm feeling some of my like deep paternal issues, abandonment issues. And she had told me she had felt that where she excludes herself, and I was just like, wow, you just made so much like sense to me. And she barely had to talk to me, and that's when I tweeted that. I'm pretty sure it's like, sit with your void until it's no longer void, because it's like, what is this part of me that actually feels like I am a little girl sitting on the outside watching everybody else? Like, what is it? And I felt so much better just honestly being honest about it, and like hearing somebody say, yeah, I exclude myself. That's the exact wording she used. And I was just like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. Like I'm excluding myself. Like I'm disconnecting myself.
Right.
That to me is the void.
Wow.
Like,
yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Skipping around a little bit here, what was your education like? You're talking about getting a bachelor's degree. You're talking about talk to me about that. What did you study?
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's degree in marketing, which
nice.
I know, I loved it. And my college experience was like, I was in a business organization, and it was doing a lot of volunteer work. And I mean, even volunteering now, and the kind of work I like would want to do, like, it's just like, I want to help the world. And that's pretty much what we were doing in our business organization, was like helping like homeless people. Like we help them sell like sweet treats in Austin, and just like help build this like little community of mini houses for them, so they get like, it was pretty much like teaching people business to improve their lives. Like it was like actually like that was like the whole point of the organization. Then we go and compete, and so that was pretty crazy and intense. And so I actually had gotten into grad school, and I dropped out of grad school, so I was gonna get my MBA, but now yeah, I know. It just like, honestly, it wasn't even, I stayed because I wanted to like keep being like a big member in my organization, but it was just kind of like a sort of natural outgrowth process, because like the life I'm trying to live isn't one that is like an MBA type life. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if I go back to school, like I'm going to go for like social work or psychology.
I was going to say your journey has been different leaving school, I mean, than it was there. I think the marketing component, though, I'm going to say is extremely helpful. A lot of people who are helpful minded, who are extreme advocates, don't have a head naturally for marketing. And so it's good that you do, because it limits the bandwidth and the radius of our healing messages, the less we know about transmitting our message. And so a lot of therapists are trained to believe that it's wrong to promote ourselves and it's wrong to go out and make money. Well, how else are we supposed to stay in the field, right?
How do I live then?
Yeah. Well, a lot of therapists are hobbyists who do it, and they're not maybe the primary breadwinners, and it's not as much of a passion, I think, if you're not living it. I mean, that's just my opinion on it. So not that there's anything wrong with doing a few hours here and a few hours there, but some people, if they're called to do it as a full-time profession, are probably going to need to learn skills to maintain a caseload.
That's how I feel right now. Is like, how do I, like, I'm really just figuring it out. I really am.
Of course. And you are just
like, how do I heal myself? But the more I heal myself, the more I want to help others. Like, it's just like, I'm not even like trying. It's weird in the sense of like, my main goal is seriously to heal myself, but I can't help it keeps leading me back to like everybody. Like, it really does.
No, I think that's what it's supposed to be. It's the inner growth expands your outer capacity to help, and then you grow more from that. And it's just such an awesome reciprocal process compared to that vicious cycle of ourselves being restricted and then restricting and hurting others, right? It's the exact inverse from that.
Totally. Because it's like, it's doing this is rewarding, like to like actually know that, like, I mean, I've had people message me like, and actually like, I mean, I feel truly that they're genuine, thankful that somebody just like listened to them. And like, I'll just be like, it's a safe space to say whatever. If you just need to like get something out to me, like, I'm not going to judge you. Like, some people just need to be heard. Like, that's a really important part of healing anyways. Is
True.
Being heard, you know?
It is validation. Yes. People need to have someone say, yes, this happened and it sucked. And it's something that is a good starting point. I mean, and then the development begins, right? Is okay, this happened and I validate this, and now what?
Right.
Otherwise, you get the personality disorder component of, well, this happened and that's it, and it's my excuse. It's a weapon.
Yeah, it's my story after that part. It's just
like, no, that's the opening. This is the tension in the story. It's the crisis point. Now there's the growth element to make it a really good story. Something you said earlier about the war between empaths and narcissists really hit, because I tweet about that. I talk about, that's probably where I'm going to go a lot going forward here, is talking to people about that and arming them, because there's such an exploitative streak in culture now. People are shamed who accept it, right? Who are prone to feeling shame and internalizing that. And it's very insidious how much that's turned on people who have empathy. It's one of my biggest.
Oh, totally. It's bait. You know what I mean? Like, it's bait. Like, somebody being in pain, and I'm sitting here. Like, I know people. I know people that are just like, I just want to help him. I just want to help him. I want him to be the one. It's like, oh my gosh, like, ugh. Like, I mean, that's the only reason. Like, honestly, I tried to like educate. And I mean, I know I'm not a like professional, but I am just like a human being that's just like looking out for like other people. And like, you know, I feel like you could say something, because I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I could. I mean, it's like Velcro or a zipper. It's one side going the other. It's someone who has a contingent self-worth, feeling like they have to earn someone's affections. It's gamefulness, right? It's game theory. You look at it as, sometimes the guy responds, or the girl, because it's not really gender, it's more personality. And women are more likely sometimes to have some personality loadings than men. Now it's kind of shifting and changing, but it's all about personality. But anyway, so it's this idea that you get intermittent reinforcement of, well, sometimes helping the person works and you get a good response, and then other times you don't. And so the fact when you get the reward, it's all the sweeter, right? Like a slot machine. You're not winning all the time. People have to be alert to if they're being manipulated by that.
Totally, because you just made such a point of like, honestly, these relationships, they are, because this is part of my training, these relationships are like drugs, because you are getting highs and lows, and you are getting dopamine mixed with whatever else. You're getting all these brain reactions, rewiring, cognitive dissonance, freaking, you're getting Stockholm syndrome almost. You know what I mean? It's like, it truly is such a big deal, because it's causing people who are not disordered to be other mental illnesses, depressed, anxious. Like,
we don't replicate what's normal or optimal. We repeat what's normal for us.
Totally.
We recreate the home crucible, the home environment in which we developed. And that's what I talk to trauma survivors about, is be aware, and let's take the shame out of the fact that we will recreate what we've learned. Mm-hmm. And it's not always optimal. And that's why people run away from healthy relationships, is they're wondering how long.
Push them away.
Right. We wonder how long it takes before the other shoe drops. And wow, if he's being nice for this long, think about how bad the abuse phase is going to last if it's this long. I mean, that's the kind of logic people develop out of trauma. And if it goes unaddressed, then they'll continue making the same decisions without really knowing why.
Oh, completely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I see a lot of, is in people, the shame keeps that cycle hidden, and it becomes, well, this is just the kind of guy I like, and this is what I deserve. And then you get people who are like, well, you just choose better. Look at how terribly you've done. You get the shaming from other men and other women, you know. Mm-hmm. And that has to be brought out, and people have to understand the logic of trauma, and that it isn't just choosing an asshole and really loving that. Sometimes it's like you've been infected with a virus, and you're
that's the whole, why doesn't she leave? Why doesn't she just leave? Well, one, it's dangerous. Two, she's brainwashed. Like, and it's not just from him. It's like you said, like, this is some sort of pattern in her, or him, or him.
Exactly. And the problem is, though, people can go the other way and say that that's valid, and let's just accept it and leave it. And it's not an orientation to want to crave trauma. It's an infection, in my opinion. And so
that's a really good way to put it.
Well, I appreciate it. It's just, what are we being infected to believe? What kind of cultural mimetic values are being disseminated, and how are those affected? How are they transmitted? And trauma is a very potent way, a very, very potent vehicle to receive that, to receive relational norms, because our limbic system's activated, and we try to recreate what did that for us. Like you said, it's like getting the first hit of a drug for free, right? If you want to.
Totally. But it's just crazy, because, like, I mean, as far as like what's going on in your brain, how much you crave that person. I read a quote once. I wish I knew the name, but it said something like, it's not love, it's a drug. If you don't believe me, just look at what you'll put up with to get your fix. It's like, shit.
I bet we could find that. In any event, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good.
Tell us what's next for you, where we can find you. I know Twitter.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm on Twitter at Steph Feels. I have a YouTube. I have done some videos. I hope I'm going in that direction, in the sense of, like, I'd like to put out more words than just tweets, although at this time it's really working for me as far as, like, being like the time and working in my life. But yeah, you can also look me on Instagram at Cosmic Feels.
Yeah.
Cosmic_Feels. And then I have a Steph Feels account, which that one I know is going to be more directed towards like anybody healing, honestly. Because the Cosmic Feels is more like astrology and jewelry and kind of just like some check-ins with me. But I'm definitely hoping to expand more into the healing world, though. I feel like I'm having to be prepared for something bigger, and I don't even know what's going to happen, honestly.
Exciting.
Right. And like us connecting, like I'm connecting with people that are like dream chasers, and like we're changing the world. Like, so when people are like, what are you doing? It's like, I want to say I'm changing the world. I think I even have a video. I have a video on YouTube about that. How to change the world by changing your world.
We'll have to link to your YouTube page.
So there is that, yeah.
Well, and it's so, and it sounds like a platitude, but it's not a cliche. It's that ripple effect of, if we're in a better place throughout our day, and we even talk to a dozen different people, and for those of us who are intentional healers, it's more than that, and we positively influence them, and they influence 12 people, and then they influence 12 people. Just do the math on the exponential effect there. Right. It is changing the world.
It is.
In some discernible, quantifiable way.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we can't help it. We can't help it. That video needs to be watched, because it's just like the world has no choice but to respond.
I will share it.
We're all connected. You know.
On that note, everybody in the Fox Den, be excited, because your positive actions will influence others.
Yes,
thank you for being on the show. Yay. Yeah.